Jigme Dorji Wangchuck was the third Druk Gyalpo of Bhutan. He began to open Bhutan to the outside world, began modernization, and took the first steps toward democratization, education and royal wedding. His Majesty King Jigme Dorji Wangchuck was born in 1929 in Thrupang Palace in Tongsa. His Majesty married Ashik Sangchoden Wangchuck, the daughter of Gongzim Sonam Tabgay, in 1951. The royal wedding was held in Paro Garden Palace. The following year, His Majesty became the king after his father died in Kwangarubdan Palace. Coronation was held in Bhutan.He on the 27th of October 1952. Father of modern Bhutan. During his 20-year reign that ended in June 1972, the fundamental reorientation of Bhutanese society began. His Majesty not only achieved the reorganization of society and government, but also consolidated in an impressive way Bhutan's sovereignty and security. He mobilized resources from the international donors as aid. His Majesty's strategy was to broaden the source of aid by developing relationships with other countries. Bhutan joined the Colombo Plan in 1962 to obtain international aid. However, India became the main source of financial and technical assistance. He was a deft and far-sighted planner in the sense that he modernized Bhutan without destabilizing its culture and tradition. His Majesty brought modern techniques and methods to preserve and promote culture of Bhutan, yet at the same time, he introduced Western science and technology. He was a forerunner among environmentalists in this part of the world. The Manas Sanctuary, established in 1966, was one of the first in the region. Political and social reforms. His Majesty Jigme Dorji Wangchuck was inherently interested in emancipation and equality. In the context of Bhutan, there were small groups who were bonded laborers. They would work on the farms of the aristocratic and prominent families. In return, they would receive food, lodging and clothes. As soon as His Majesty became the king, the laborers who worked on the royal lands were made into tenants and sharecroppers instead of indentured laborers. Later, similar indentured laborers were set free in other areas of the country, especially in some parts of eastern Bhutan, where they were concentrated. In 1953, His Majesty, realizing that hitherto the decision of the king and that of the high officials were binding on the country, wanted them to be shared. As a result, His Majesty opened the National Assembly of Bhutan in 1953 in Bhutan.He. For the first time, elders from different Gyalpogs were invited to voice the concerns, ideas and solutions for the future of this country. At the same time, it was a forum for His Majesty to share his larger vision for Bhutan in the years to come. After the National Assembly was established in 1953, His Majesty drafted and devised a series of progressive laws for the kingdom. The king brought out a holistic set of laws covering fundamental aspects of Bhutanese life such as land, livestock, marriage, inheritance, property and so forth. The Thrumjung Chenmo was passed by the National Assembly in 1959. The laws are very organic, coherently interrelated within themselves into the evolving reality, and manifested his vision of a law-based society. Along with the promulgation of Thrumjung Chenmo, a mechanism to implement and enforce laws was needed. His Majesty decided to open the judiciary, first with the appointment of Thrimpons in districts, and then finally to the High Court, which was set up in 1968. These administrative and social reforms were prior to any economic modernization programs. In 1955, he intensified the conversion of commodity taxes to cash taxes by assessing land for cash taxation. Cash taxes were nominal, but moving from commodity taxes to cash taxes was a radical step at the time. Apart from promulgation of better laws and tax reforms, the royal Bhutan Bhutan Army was formally established in 1963. Furthermore, the entitlements of all officials were converted from commodities to cash and new designations were given. His Majesty established new ministries in 1968. Culture and education. His Majesty paid considerable policy attention on preserving Bhutanese culture so that Bhutan could always perpetuate itself as a culturally distinct nation, in particular with a flourishing Buddhist culture. The third king established Simtoka Rigshung Lodra in 1967, where a new breed of traditional scholars could be nurtured. His Majesty also increased the number of monks in many Dratchangs. His Majesty is the father of Dzongkha as the national language. The systematic phonetic, syntax and grammatic rules were devised under the command of Third King so that Dzongkha could be enhanced from a widely spoken to a written language, to propagate culture and traditions in schools, and to study scientific disciplines as well as humanities. The Third King established modern education on a widespread basis. He established what were then the centers of education excellence with two public schools, Yangchengfug in western Bhutan in 1969, and the other, Kanglung, in eastern Bhutan in 1968. An agriculture department was created to improve nutrition and to generate income from horticulture. The kingdom's free health service was also founded. Infrastructure development. Modernizing Bhutan's infrastructure for transportation, communications, education, health system and agriculture started after India was receptive enough to offer aid. India became independent in 1947 and was not in any immediate position to help Bhutan. His Majesty officially visited India in 1954. The first Indian Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru made a historic journey to Bhutan in September 1958. King Jigme Dorji Wangchuck then paid repeated visits to India. A year after Nehru visited Bhutan in 1958, the development of Bhutan's modern infrastructure began, with assistance from India. Although road construction started in 1959, a large-scale undertaking became systematic 2 years later in 1961, with the commencement of the first 5-year plan that envisaged construction of 177 kilometers of road, 108 schools, 3 hospitals, and 45 clinics. In 1961, motor road transport reached Thimphu. The systematic envisioning of the economic future of Bhutan through FYPs was put into practice in 1961. The idea of budgeting and programming on a 5-year basis is a legacy from that period. The construction of roads expanded vigorously to the end of His Majesty Jigme Dorji Wangchuck's reign. In fact, his very last visit to central Bhutan was partly to open the Zhonglim, the highway between Wangde Phadrang and Tongsa, in 1971. Multilateral and bilateral relations. His Majesty's first and foremost priority was to continue deepening the excellent relationship with India. The second priority was to diversify the relationship with other countries. He intended to strike close economic relationship with Bangladesh. Bhutan was the first nation after India to recognize the independence of Bangladesh. His Majesty poured his energy and determination to make Bhutan a member of United Nations. One of the crowning glories of his era was enabling Bhutan to join the United Nations in 1971, when it became its 125th member. Styles 1929 to 1944, Dasho Jigme Dorji Wangchuck, 1944 to 1946, Trongsa Dronya Dasho Jigme Dorji Wangchuck, 1946 to 1952, Paro Penlop Dasho Jigme Dorji Wangchuck, 1952 to 1963. His Highness Shri Panch Maharaj Jigme Dorji Wangchuck, Maharaja of Bhutan, 1963 to 1972. His Majesty Druk Gyalpo Jigme Dorji Wangchuck, Mangpi Osbhu Bari Gyalpo, King of Bhutan. Honours. National Honours Bhutan, Grand Master of the Royal Order of Bhutan. Foreign Honours United Kingdom, King George V Silver Jubilee Medal, King George VI Coronation Medal, India Padma Vibhushan.